questions that you have or pain points that you're experiencing, addressing those. We're also going to be introducing some new and cool new initiatives that are coming up for you guys to hopefully make your day a lot easier. The thing that is new about this year is it's going to be extremely informal. It is conversational, so we welcome and want you to ask as many questions throughout the program as you'd like. I've provided a packet for you all to reference throughout. We're going to have a PowerPoint up in a few minutes, but in that, it gives you the opportunity to take notes if you like and write down any questions that you might have and maybe want to ask later. It also has the agenda. On the agenda, you're going to notice that it has break times and Q&A times. Those are just to save space and time. Those are not hard set. So if you have a question, you do not have to wait until the Q&A section. You just raise your hand and go ahead and let us know. We can address it. Someone else might have the same question as well. So we welcome that. The other thing that's different this year is we have a theme. And it is Bet on Education, i.e. the dice that are all on your tables. You have some props if you want to take photos. You don't have to. There's little photo opportunities that you can take. We have a welcome gift, which is right in front of each of you. If you want to go ahead, you can open it up just to say thank you for coming. Cooper definitely can't have some of the things in there. Sure. So what you have is a packet of GRI pens that you all can begin to disperse if you like, however you like. You can't be in Vegas without money, so you've got some money mints. And of course, you need some coins to drop in the slots, and those are chocolates to keep your energy up. So please take advantage of anything in the notebook that you can jot down notes as well, if you like. So thank you once again. We are going to start by introducing our staff very quickly. We have in the back of the room, John Bugsy Hauser. We have Gregory Sammy Davis Lang over there. Our new addition, Amy Ace Gamber. And Eric, would you stand up? We have Eric Unlucky Luciano. Love you. Anyway.
We also have Beth Hernandez as well, who couldn't be here today because she's at a state head directors meeting with other state head directors. So unfortunately the days overlapped and that was unavoidable this time, but she wanted us to express her regrets that she wasn't able to attend today. So.
Thank you. So what I'd like to do is start by having you all introduce yourselves, and if you could just let us know what association you're with, how long you've been there, and what role you play, that would be great. Maybe you all can start to mingle on the breaks throughout. So I'll start with you, Amber.
My name's Amber Kennedy. I'm with the Bryan College Station Board. Been there about starting my 13th year. And what was the other one?
Just what your role is.
We're just a little board, so I'm just association staff.
Very important that. Thank you. Right.
I'm Mike Crowley. I'm the director of the Realtor Academy Professional Development at the San Antonio Board of Realtors. This is Cooper. I've been there 2 years, 5 days, and 3 hours. And we do, I run just the school part of it, professional development, TRLP. We have pre-licensing, CE, designation, certifications. So.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, my name is Rita Blevins. I'm the Director of Professional Development for the Houston Association of Realtors. June 8th, this Saturday, was my 21-year anniversary. And I handle all of the education for all facets of the association.
Thank you.
Megan Sheehan, I'm with Greater Fort Worth Association of Realtors. I will be there 17 years in October. I do membership and education, so I've got 2 hats and lots of helping hands, so I'm glad to be here soon.
Lindsay Wright, the AE for Greater Texoma, and just celebrated 5 years.
Nancy Myers with Greater Denton Wise, and I'm the AE, been there 5 years, AE 4, and what a pleasure. Laura Tilley with the Heartland Association Beaumont, 31 years.
Diana Rodriguez, with the Odessa Board of Realtors, and I've been there 16 years.
Morales Galindo, Odessa Board of Realtors, been there 14 years.
Roxy Glenn with the Metro Tracks Association of Realtors in Dallas, and I've been there almost 6 years. I'm the Director of Professional Development.
I'm Debbie Moran with the Williamson County Association Board here just north of Austin. Director of Education for 5 years.
Marla Rikers, I'm with the Permian Basin Board of Realtors. AE is Carolyn Arnold, and I've been there 4 years. And membership and education. And those are my partner in crime.
Shannon Bendis, I'm with Highland Lakes Association of Realtors. I've been there, y'all have been here a year, so.
Oh, nice. Well done.
It adds up quick.
It does.
Moji Aladahan. I am the Professional Development Director at Collin County. I've been there 3 years, 1 year in communication, 2 years in education.
I'm Loretta Miller, Corpus Christi Association of Realtors. I'll be there 19 years in July, and I'm the Education and Events Director.
And then this table back here. Umberto.
My name is Marco Ramos, and I'm with the Greater McAllen Association of Realtors, and I'm the Education Coordinator. Been there a little bit over 2 years.
Monica Bingham, the CEO of Greater McAllen Association of Realtors, been there almost 3 years.
Greg Hassel, Wichita Falls Association of Realtors. I'm the AE, and I've been there 2 years, June 1st.
Diane Jennings, Tampa, AE, 18 years.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And oh wait, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you. I'm so sorry.
Joanne Casey Swetman, I'm with Waco. I have been the Education and Marketing Coordinator for 2 months now, but I've been with the association for 1.5 years.
Very nice, thank you. And part of the reason I did that, ask for the time, is because we have veterans, plenty of veterans in here, and we have some people new to this education program. And so these are the type of formats where we can interact and engage with each other and learn from each other, and actually we as association staff can learn from you all. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that. We are going to start off before John comes up to start his presentation. We are going to go ahead and have one of our raffles. So we're going to have prizes throughout the day. So if I can get unlucky Mr. John up here. My name is Chandra. They call me the enforcer Norman. I'm very nice about it. So very pleasant.
My name for is actually Skippy. She sits around a lot.
Okay, so we are giving away around $25 gift card to Nancy Myers. So throughout the day, we're going to be giving away raffles just like that. Hopefully everyone will win something, but it is Vegas, so can't guarantee anything. All right, John, you ready?
Sure, yeah. All right. Good morning, everybody. We are so glad that you were here. And before I really begin, you guys can hear okay, or do I need a microphone? Ish. I can talk louder, but I can also use the microphone as well. I'll do that. Unless you're going to stay back here. Alright. How about that? Is that okay? Better? Alright. Well, good morning. We're so glad that you guys are here. Thank you for coming and helping us collaborate with each other. As Chandra said, we're hoping that this is a time where it's not just us presenting to you guys and things that we're doing or that we're planning to do, but more importantly, we collaborate. We find out what your pain points are in education. We find out what other people's pain points are, and we can hopefully work together to create a better education environment all around for the state of Texas. That's our goal. So as we're talking, any ideas, any thoughts, any questions, please shout out, raise your hand, poke your neighbor next to you, whatever you need to do, just to make sure we're actually communicating about this as we go along. Before I go on, I do want to say a quick shout out to the entire professional development department. I'll tell you this. First of all, Chandra actually put this whole thing together, so I'm so thankful for that. So Chandra, thank you for all of your And second, everything that we currently do and everything that we're planning to do, please know it wouldn't work without these amazing people that are working really hard behind the scenes to make sure it's a success. And hopefully you're going to see the fruits of labor as we go on about today. So thank you guys for all that you guys do. what we're going to talk about right now is more of some house rules, some administrative type stuff. The one thing, did you happen to talk about the pins, Chandra? They're in the boxes?
No, they're in the boxes, but I didn't.
Alright, so one thing that we do, or that probably no one even knows about, is that we have Texas shaped GRI pins. We actually pass those out, or we can actually sell them to you if you want to use them. You should have 10 per box that you can use. They're yours for participating today. But for GRI designees, they can purchase them. We will obviously sell them to you at a reduced rate. Our goal is to get rid of them, and that way you guys can actually pass them out to your people. And hopefully bolster the value of the GRI, the fact that it's something that they're getting and they can actually walk away with something besides just a certificate. There's a lot of people who like pens. They have the option to do that. No requirement, it's not expected, but it's something you can do. Those 10 that you have are yours to keep or pass them out as you see fit. If you'd like to put your own bling on yours, you're welcome to do so, but those are yours. And so hopefully you can use them however you want. Yes?
How much?
They're $10. They used to be $15 unless you bought them in bulk, and we would do 12. We will now reduce it to 10 because we want you guys to be able to use them and we want to get rid of them. And so, yes, they're $10 per pen, and you can buy as many as you want, and we'll send them to you whenever you're ready. So, housekeeping. I'm pretty sure this goes in order. We'll find out. All right. So, in your package, you actually have something that's called the co-sponsorship agreement. About once a year or so, you guys receive a copy of it, you sign it, you send it back, and you probably look like me and you don't look at it. Now, the whole plan behind the co-sponsorship agreement is actually to outline the details or the shared responsibilities between your association and us when you're offering classes to our provider. Our goal, hope, and expectation is it is all-encompassing. So it has clear expectations whenever you read through it, walking 4 pages. Namely, you can go to the host responsibilities, which are you guys, and our responsibilities. You can see what you guys do and what we do. And that way we can all be on the same page. A couple of key things that we want to make sure that we outline through that is, one, please let us know when you're having a class. That's really helpful because then we can make sure you have the materials for the course, which most of you guys do. CART is the conduit to do so. We'll talk more about the logistics of that later. I'm pretty sure everybody knows how to use CART here and has been in it for years. So please let us know about classes. The faster you let us know about it, the faster it gets on our website, and also the faster we can be prompted to make sure that we send marketing for it as well. We always send out one marketing message for each class that you put on there, or we're able to, and we do it at your preference. Now I can tell you, and Chandra will probably articulate more about this later under the marketing component, we have found that we used to send it 2 to 3 to 4 weeks in advance. And what we've learned, and this is new to us, maybe not to you, but realtors don't think that far ahead. They think of today, tomorrow, a week from now, maybe. And so, because it's a very moving climate, you know, it's very volatile, and that there's always something new. There might be a closing today that wasn't there yesterday, whatever. And so, we've actually found that regardless of the class, 3 to 5 business days is the target date for us to be able to send it out. We see the greatest return on a message at that time. Now, we don't have to do it that time. We only recommend it. You can tell us whenever you want to do it, because we're not going to send it without your blessing, because we also recognize you might be sending messages as well. And the last thing that we want to do, I hope you're sending messages, the last thing we want to do is send it the exact same day and the exact same time as yours. That is a waste of everyone's time. And so we will check with you guys before we send anything. We won't necessarily send it unless you put the actual preferred marketing date into CART. It will say, what day would you like for us to try and send it? And we will try to do it that day. Yeah, Nancy.
Now, do you do that same plan 3 to 5 days for the stuff that you need to send us materials on?
Yes. Which is why, and that's a great question. So a long time ago, we used to spin our wheels trying to get you course materials, saying, how many people do you have? How many people do you have now? How about now? How many people do you have? And we got so tired of that because inevitably people wait till the last minute. You have a surge at the last minute. We're rushing to try and get you course materials. We no longer send you how many materials based upon your registrants. We send you materials based upon how many people or how many books you feel comfortable in receiving. You can get 50 books if you want 50 books and you have 10 people in the class, and we're okay with that. And you can hold on to the books until the next class, or ship them back, whatever you want to do. We don't require you to ship them back anymore, but we do that so that way we're not turning around and sending again and sending a third time. We're glad that your classes are increasing, but we want to make sure you have plenty at the beginning, and then we're good. We're about, what is it guys, three weeks ahead, maybe 4 weeks ahead on shipping course materials? 3 weeks. So once we hit that July 4th week, we'll probably get up to 4, because usually there's not a whole lot going on then. But our goal is to try and get between 3 and 4 weeks ahead And if you say, hey, I have a GRI class that's coming, we know it's in the system because you've already put it in there because you're awesome. We know, based upon our previous conversations, you have an estimated number of 40, 50, 60 books that you want. We're assuming you want that many unless you have recently had the class and we think maybe you have 20 extra sitting around. You never know. And we'll check with you just to make sure. If you want to tap out and not get extra books, you can tell us that as well. And we will not hold them or we'll not send them until you ask for them. But our goal is to make sure you have the supplies on hand while we're still printing, that you have the supplies on hand so you don't have to keep asking, nickel and diming every, oh, I need one more, I need two more now, I need three more now. You have all that you need, and if you want to send it back, you can. If you want to hold on, that's fine too. But we just want to make sure you have plenty. And we are about 3 weeks ahead, and we did it for that reason, so we can get ahead, and we're not having to rush around at the last minute to try and get a couple of extra books. We've also moved to a new printer as well. We used to use FedEx Office, and we just found that the reason why we used it was the just-in-time delivery, and then it got to just-in-eventual delivery, and we were like, maybe we shouldn't use them anymore if that's the case. And so we found that Office Max Office Depot, which is our other entity that we're already working with anyway, they have an option where they print everything in-house, and they ship everything, including the exams and evaluations and books and everything. The only thing that they require is one, a minimum of 10 books, and two, 6 business days. So as long as we know about the class 6 business days in advance, we can get you whatever you want. And we can easily click the buttons and we can get them to you in no time at all. We do have the ability to print in-house, but we'd rather not. We'd rather use Office Max Office Depot because they do a really slick job of putting the materials together and getting them to you. We are aware that they do, upon occasion, decide to put evaluations individually packaged. I don't know why they do that. I've yet to figure that out. They want to waste plastic, I suppose that's okay, but we're trying to work on trying to fix that as well. So please know that that's something we're working on. Let's see, we talked about adding classes through cart. We talked about marketing. The one thing that I will say I'm very impressed with you guys as a whole, you guys have really developed this, and thank you for that, is that in the co-sponsorship agreement, it does say please remit the paperwork and everything back to us within 2 business days. We are actually down to about 24 hours on average. That's the average number of time for every single person to send everything back to us, which is really impressive. And so thank you for that, because the more time we have to process and to rectify to make sure we have everything, the easier it is to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. So thank you for that. But yes, it is 2 business days. That's our goal, is to get all the stuff put into cart. Does anybody have any questions about the co-sponsorship agreements or logistics in general about how things work and adding cart, marking messages, processing afterwards? Awesome. I'm excited about that. Or more importantly, you want me to get away from this microphone. The second thing, some of you have an option that's called a service level agreement. Just in case you don't know what that is, because we do have some relatively new people. Generally speaking, we have CE classes on our instructor course search that you can go look at to see all kinds of options and opportunities. If you have live classroom experiences in your office or through your office, not actually in your office, you can sign something called a service level agreement. And what that is an option where you don't actually pay us a per person fee for those classes. They're not designation courses. Those still have fees because we have royalty fees we have to pay and what have you. But regular CE classes, so if it's like legal update, we don't print the materials for that. And so therefore you can sign a service level agreement and you don't pay a per person fee for those courses for the entire year. You can also get new courses added. The agreement does say we have the right to charge up to 50% for a course application. We don't really do that unless you ask for 100 classes, then we're going to talk. But if you want 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, that's not a big deal. That's actually part of the reason why we have it, the price on the service level agreement, is because we want to make sure we can cover that in the process. So basically, you can run CE classes for free through our provider with that one-time fee. It's once a year. So you can choose to do it 1 year and choose not to the next year, whatever it might be. Any questions about that? Awesome. Let's go to the next one. Either I'm credit warning or you're really excited about getting away from me talking. Okay, so we have, just so you know, before we get too far about administrative and household and housekeeping, 2 really important things is, number 1, you don't have to write this link down because we will email you all this stuff. So you don't have to keep track of it. It's a little long. So number 1, we will email you all the relevant links. And 2, we are recording today. And we do intend to index it to let you know roughly what time we're talking about what. So if you or you want your staff people to look at it later, you're welcome to do that. And we will supply that video to you guys so you can actually watch it at a later time if you want other people to see it. And we will send you a recap email to say, hey, these are the links we talked about. This is what this is. So we're talking about today, and hopefully that will be more of a refresher when we get back to that. So don't feel like you actually have to write that down. That'd be terrible. So the education resource page, we Our goal is to create a one-stop shop for you guys to go to if you have a question about education. And it's actually that link right there. And if anybody can spit that off with your eyes closed, I'd be really impressed. But it's through the AE portion of the website. You can get to it through education and resources. It has everything. The instructor course search. It has online versions of our monitor guidelines. It has information about the leadership program. It will have some new stuff that I will tell you about because I'll let Chandra tell you about it because she's been working hard on some new things. But it has anything that you need to handle administratively a class. That is where you would find it. We will make sure you have a link to it. It literally has everything. If it doesn't have it, please tell us because that's the goal, is it would be everything for you. The only thing it currently doesn't have are reports like CART because that's something we want to make sure that not everybody has access to. And so we have to make sure we give it just to you, not just to people who have a login. And then also the education reports we'll talk about in a second. That's also.
Is there new stuff for TRLP on there?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
I was gonna say it was, okay.
No, not new stuff, just stuff.
Okay.
And so our goal is to hopefully get some new stuff up there, yes, but it's not there yet.
Okay.
Any other questions about the education resource page? All right, so education tools. This is something that we talked about last year at the education day we had. We discovered that we have a ton of information about your members that you have given to us, and we use these tools all the time. And we thought, well, why don't we give them to you? And so we came out with these tools where you can actually use those different reports. We have a classes report that'll tell you anything you want to know about any class you've ever offered, the ratings, the number of attendees, the different kinds of classes you had at different times. You have how many people have like the ABR designation. That's a tool that's out there. So if you have 67% of your members that have the ABR, maybe you don't offer the ABR, you can look at it and make informed decisions based upon this information. There's tons of tools out there. Well, there's 5 tools out there right now, maybe 6, and you're welcome to use them to your heart's content. My question and request of you is, what do you need to be able to make informed decisions or help you in what you do? And I don't expect an answer right this second because I just asked you, and it's early in the morning. There's not enough coffee, but please know that we have information and we have the ability to access this information and we have the ability to give it back to you. And so if there's something in particular that you guys are looking for that you don't have access to right now, please let us know because we have the data and we have the ability to hopefully put it in a way that makes sense to you and give it back to you. So, yes, Moji.
Now, I know in the past and I haven't been in there in a while, so I don't know if that's changed. Does it still list it per class, or is it streamlined now to where it just has the name and then the class they have? For example, the GRI. So does it still list it as 3 names under GRI and then you have to look over to see which one they're missing? Or is it now compiled into 1 name and then the GRI is just checked across?
Yeah, it should have always been where it was 1 name and it tells you the 1, 2, and 3. And if it's not, that's important to note because that's not what we see and you guys should see exactly what we see. So she's talking about the GRI designation report that's out there. So if you have a GRI that's coming up, it's a way that you can actually target market those people to finish 2 of the 3. So if you have, or even more importantly, if you're trying to host a GRI class and not really sure which one to host, you can figure out by the people who have recently attended classes which ones are the most deficit, and that's the one you offer, right? So that report should have always displayed Moji, and it has 1 and 2, and you're missing 3. That's what it should have said. If it's not the case, then we need to fix that. So we'll work on fixing that.
That's what it shows.
It does show it that way? Whew, all right. Yes. So, but we'll check it just to make sure, just in case there's some. I will say upon occasion, the way our database works, full confessional, our database is a membership-driven database, which is great for membership, but we're not membership. And so it's a whole different ballgame when you're talking about education. So we actually have to create education records, and then all of a sudden they become members. Awesome, but now you have 2. And we have to find a way to merge those 2 records. So upon occasion, you might see that, but we haven't found it yet to merge. But we're actually, I believe we set up a report to where we could identify those people and go ahead and concatenate that information to where it's all together now. So it might be why you might have seen it before and you don't now. Yeah, Roxy.
Are we able to get reports on any class that they take through your providership or just the designations?
Any class.
Any class, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it covers any and all things. If it's through our provider, you can get access to it. I like the classes report personally because it's a very quick and easy way to find everything you're really looking for. As far as the classes that have recently been offered, ratings, it'll tell for the instructor, it'll even tell the course ratings as well. Traditionally, we found that the instructor and course ratings are usually about a 1/10 of a point off from each other. So if they don't like the instructor, they're going to hate the class, generally speaking. if you guys see something different, I would like to hear that. But you can also, on the other reports, like if you're looking at designations by board, or you're looking at education reports, attendance reports, you can look at the total number of attendees for a different grouping of a class. You can hit student detail, and it tells you the actual students as well. So if you haven't done that, it's a simple button click. That's all I can think of about education reports. Any other questions, ideas, thoughts?
About reports or other tools?
Sure, either.
I would like to have access to the instructor resources, or at least my staff, the PowerPoints, the books, instructor guides, etc., for all the courses that are available, GRI specifically, so we have it on hand in case anything happens. As much as I like to rely on instructors, I don't trust anybody, so just having access to that.
Yeah. So, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, we had associations who would sign up. This is before CART, before we had any kind of checking and quality checking. We had instructors who would contract instructors to come in and teach. They weren't approved to teach those classes, but they had access to the materials, and so they would give them the materials. And so that's why we had to take it away for a while, because somebody didn't follow the rules. And so now, the good news is we at least have the ability for you guys to quickly and easily, when you add a class, if you can't add the instructor, guess what? They're not approved. And so if you can't add the instructor, they don't get access. It's just that simple. And so we are trying to even streamline that process to make it even more efficient as time progresses. But at this time, that's why we didn't do it. If I can trust you guys to not give it out to people who shouldn't be getting it, then yeah, 100%. I would love for you guys to have access to that material, because things happen, right? Like, let's say they get there and all of a sudden the iPad that they were using doesn't have the, whatever it is, or they drop it, which, not that I've done that before, but things happen. And so we would much rather be safe than sorry. And so, yeah, we would love to do that. The only thing we ask is you don't give it to people who aren't supposed to get access to it. So, anything else? I will tell you, and if I'm getting ahead of myself, I apologize, because I keep forgetting where things are in the PowerPoint, but I will tell you this. There's a couple of new things that we're coming out with, and one of them is the way we disseminate the information, because we have this thing called Instructor Update Center, which I've hated since the day we've gotten it. It's okay. It was a means to an end. Way back when, in a galaxy far, far away, we had the ability to send materials to people via CD. That's how we sent out the PowerPoint and access to the thing. It was awesome. And then we came up with this even cooler thing called the Instructor Update Center. It is not intuitive. It's clunky. It has a tendency to not be synced with what's in our database. And more importantly, we would much rather things be even more robust. So to your point, Mike, what we're hopefully trying to do is move to an environment where it's more of a collaborative event. So where when you schedule a class, if it's a designation class, we're going to just drop the materials into a bucket automatically. And let's say the instructor has additional materials and have your association, and they have a handout they will love to give out. We're going to drop that in, you guys can drop that in the bucket as well. And then let's say we have an additional thing that we want to put in there, like the code of ethics. We can also put that in there as well. And this bucket is something that people will actually have access to online before the class begins. And then they have access to use it to whatever they need, but we collectively can actually drop things into that, and we also collectively all have access to it. And different people will have different permissions, so like the instructor can't take out the book, that would be terrible, but we will have the ability to drop in, so everybody has access to all the materials all the time, and printing will be minimal at that point. So that's something we're trying to work towards, so we don't have to worry about this file share system anymore. It'll be book specific or class specific, and everybody will have access to it based upon what you schedule. Any questions? Okay. Instructor and course approvals. This is interesting, and it's a very long conversation that we don't really have an answer to, but we're going to start. I'll start with course approvals because that's easy. So the Texas Real Estate Commission approves courses. It was brought to our attention by the Austin Board of Realtors, who I don't see in here right this minute. They said, hey, we have found that there are times where, actually, let me take a step back. The way CART works, and the reason why we came up with CART in the first place, is because inevitably, we had times and circumstances where people looked on our instructor course search, and they see an instructor is approved at the time in which they look, or they see a course is approved at the time in which they look. 6 months later, one of those might change. And they already had scheduled the classes, and then all of a sudden, we're up a creek, because we're trying to make sure everything is working correctly. The whole premise behind CART, the reason why it even started, was because we wanted to make sure the people were approved and the course was approved at the time in which you wanted to offer the course. And I'm sure some people have found that where they try to schedule it and they're like, oh, I can't because either the instructor or the course or both are not approved at the time in which you're trying to schedule it. That was the purpose of CART. Our workaround is, especially when a class is 8 months down the road, because you guys like to schedule way in advance, which is awesome. If it's 8 months down the road, we have to manually change the course approval the expiration date for the class for people to be able to schedule classes. Not a big deal, except for that course number changes in the middle of that time. And then you are marketing a class with a course number because you're awesome and you follow the co-sponsorship agreement, and it says to market classes, you have to have the provider name, provider number, course name, and course number for every course that you're saying offer CE credit. When you're doing that, you're actually using the wrong course number because at the time in which you looked, that's what it was showed, but then it changed and no one knew. So now we have an automatic system to where if you schedule a class, at the time in which you were scheduling it, that's the course number, sure. If it changes, and you already have the course in our system, it'll send you an email. Or whoever is listed on the through CART, it will send them an email saying, you have a class that's scheduled here, just so you know the course number has changed and this is now the new course number. That is automatic, so you don't have to worry about it anymore, but just know that that way you're marketing with the correct course number at the time in which you're scheduling the course. Any questions about course approvals? Good, because that was an easy one. The instructor one, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the Sunset Committee has determined that the Texas Real Estate Commission should not be overseeing instructors. Have you guys heard this? No? Oh, yay. So, just so you know, because we talked about this in February at a winter meeting with instructors, they said, can you, Texas Realtors, advocate against this? The short answer is no, because the Sunset Committee findings and recommendation is all or nothing. And so we can't say, hey, we like 80% of it, but this 20%, we'd rather you guys do this otherwise. It's either all or nothing. And so because of that, we couldn't go against it. They have approved and they said, you are now no longer overseeing instructors. And that's what the legislature has now said. The commission is actually meeting in, I think it's August, or no, they're meeting next month? Is it this month? Not ESAC, the actual committee. The commission. Yeah. So it's possible that ESAC will, the Education Standards Advisory Committee will be beforehand to make a determination of like how is this going to work and what are they going to do, and then they're going to send it over to the commission. The commission will look at it, review it, and approve it, probably in August. And then so the earliest anything's really going to change is September. So the way we're doing things now, we'll continue to do things. We'll do it that way until the commission says otherwise, because that's the rule. Yes.
Yeah. The ESAC meeting is on July 8th, and then the commissioners meeting is on August 12th. And so I was thinking I would go with Comp or Wet Stream in just so I can hear what they're saying.
100%.
But yeah.
It's going to change everything, right? If you think about it. Yeah, what's up, Mike?
I do have an email from Fred. This on instructor renewal. It says as of September 1st, they will not be issuing instructor licenses anymore.
Yeah.
September 1st.
Okay.
So if you have a class before then, my recommendation, especially if it's through a provider, I would highly recommend, especially for a CE class, that you have somebody who is approved for CE credit to sit in the room and then to get renewed. Because according to us, our approval is a trade association, it's a separate approval, and in doing so, you can actually have guest speakers. They can teach 100% of the class, and they don't have to be approved for CE as long as someone is approved for CE electives in there. There's no point in them getting approved for 3 months. That's $150 that's not necessary. So I would just try and bide your time. So if you're having a live classroom course, have someone approved for CE in the room. Don't make somebody go get approved. That's no point. I mean, as of September 1st, it's no longer eligible.
Who's going to be? Who is going to be?
That's a great question. And so I'm assuming that my best guess is ETAC is going to say that obviously the providers are going to be over it. And then it's a matter of what are they going to offer to us to make sure that we at least understand what their requirements and expectations are. I do know that because we've been talking to Jennifer Wheeler at Trek, that they're freely giving out, hey, these are what we currently use. And so now the question is, what are they going to expect of us, or what are they going to request of us as providers? We don't know that. But I would tell you this, just thinking ahead, it's going to change the landscape of education. That's for sure. We collectively
are looking at it from a member side. We want to make sure our members are know what they're doing. That way we can invest into the industry to make sure that they stay in it longer, to make sure they are profitable in what they do. Not every provider is that way, and so I don't know what that's going to mean as time goes on.
Is this gonna be for all types of renewal of approvals?
All instructor approvals, yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean, like both qualified
Even
and
legal 1, legal 2, verbal responsibility, yeah. They're gonna have the trainings, but I don't know what that means after that. Beats me. That's what July 8th is gonna show. We will find out. You said July 8th, right? Okay. Yeah, we'll find out. I mean, we've been twiddling our thumbs just as much, trying to figure out what they're gonna do. So the good news is we at least know that the answer is effective September 1st, no more instructor approvals from their side. Then from our side, we will have to find a way to vet people through our provider, because we're not going to let just anybody teach anything willy-nilly across the board. That's kind of ridiculous.
So anybody can teach it. So they're going to approve the courses. Track will still approve the courses.
Yep.
So anybody can write a course. So I can write my own course.
Yep.
Write anything I want to write.
You can write anything you want to write. Yes. Yeah. So up to the basic premise is that there's still going to be some kind of, there's always going to be a provider, there's always going to be a course approval component at this point. That's always true. The instructor approval is something that they're offloading that from the Texas Real Estate Commission, and they're going to put that onus onto providers. Now, what they want to do or what they expect to do is the question at hand. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know if they're going to say, yeah, it doesn't matter, whatever. Or they're going to say, hey, we expect providers to follow these guidelines, whatever it might be. We'll find out July 8th.
So I guess what's weird about that is if I have somebody that's approved to teach under my provider through me, then if they want to teach it at your office with that, I guess we just do it. It's a wild, wild west.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're going more towards the same model as higher education, and that is the accrediting boards don't qualify instructors. Schools do. Schools do to a standard. The standard likely won't change. It's just each individual provider is going to have to vet and keep all the documentation for proof. So really it sounds like it's going to be more strict in the sense that their new enforcement or standards, what are they calling themselves, the new division?
You're not talking about ESEC, you're talking about an actual enforcement division.
TREC. So the TREC education now has that separate division that Gwen is running, where they're going to be auditing providers and ensuring that the providers have qualified instructors. So likely the standards won't change at all. We'll just be held accountable for the standards versus TREC. So if you decide to have an instructor teach a course that doesn't meet the standards, it's going to be on you. So we're going to have to keep robust records.
Which would be a great thing. If that's what comes to fruition, I think that would be awesome. Because at least we know that there's a standard and expectation across the board that everybody's trying to follow, instead of what could happen. So, we'll see. I mean, because admittedly the ESAC will propose it and then TREC has to approve it as the commissioners. One would hope that they're going to follow suit and do what they're proposing, but we'll see. It'll be an interesting time. So as of today, nothing has changed, but we know something's coming, and we'll definitely keep you guys posted. Any questions? Alright, we talked about course numbers, yay! Okay, my education page. This is something that's relatively new. We used to have something a long time ago. It's where we tracked their education hours, and we told them, hey, you have X number of hours left and however many days to get it done. We took that down because it was broken, and it never was going to work because TREC didn't even keep track of those numbers at the time. And so now we still have an education page. We do have a link to the new TREC information on there to where it says that, hey, you have X number of hours left before your license renews. That's on there, but just so you know, the My Education page is on TexasRealestate.com under For Realtor Members, Education, My Education. And the goal and expectation is everything education related will be on that page for them. It'll talk about their certificates of completion, their designation certificates like the GRI, or the THS, TRLS, TRPM, any other acronym for our provider. That'll all be on there. It will have the link to the TREC thing. We will also, as time progresses, that bucket system we were talking about, the repository of education, that will all be on that page. The FastPass is on that page. Everything is on that page. It even talks about upcoming classes in their area. Any questions? We'll send the link, but the goal is if somebody says, hey, I can't find my GRI certificate, it's there. hey, I can't find, it's there. It's there. Every time, all day, every day. It's a static link. You can send it to them. As long as they're logged in, they're good to go. That way, the only two issues we might have is if they're not logged in, don't know how to log in, or they didn't take the class they said they did. And so, which can happen. So, other than that, it should all be on that page. Reports, we talked about that. Yay. And there's a screenshot of it. So these are the 9 that we currently have right now. They're usually pretty helpful because you can see the people who have started but not finished, the ones down below, and the DRI report up top. I like the course registration report because it gives you numbers, it gives you data about individuals, it gives you data about the number of attendees for various types of classes that you offer. I love the classes report because it gives you just a snapshot of all the classes and information you need. The license expiration report is something that we came out with. I think Vicky asked for it, to where you actually know when people are about to expire, and hey, you might want to check on your education. Education stats is all kinds of information about all kinds of stuff. The designations report, that's the one thing, I wish that we didn't have dates on it, because who cares about what dates you took it. So I'm going to try to hopefully work towards that, to where that's optional, where you don't have to put that in there, because I hate typing things in from 1942. But that's really handy as well, because you can kind of see where you're landing as far as the number of designations you have out there. This is already out there, as Mike mentioned. If there's anything additional that you want to see, let us know, and we'll be happy to see what we can do with putting it on there. So now we're going to move into a couple of things that, just so you know, you can put your pens down. This is not anything that's changing today, but this is the direction in which we are going. And so we want to pick your brain about some ideas that we have, because we don't want to make it worse for you. That's our goal. Okay? And what's that?
We appreciate that.
So that's why we're talking about it now. Nothing's changed yet, but we want to make sure that we're all on the same page. We're changing some things on CART. A lot of things, and they're all kind of going to hit at the same time, because they're all interrelated to some capacity. The goal is that between now and the next time that we meet, almost all, if not all of them, will be in place, if beta testing or outright in place. But a lot of it has to do with what you guys say today, because we want to make sure we're moving in the right direction. A couple things. One, we want to move to an environment where they have the ability to access ebooks, and other things like the bucket we were talked about. We're moving to that environment. That's going to change a couple things, because then we're not going to be shipping you books as time progresses. They're going to have access to the books through CART, and consequently on their My Education page for the classes in which they register. It's going to have, you'll have an option in CART of, hey, this is the no refunds date, whatever that is, and then once you have that date, that's when they get access to the books. If they want a book, we can still print books, and we can still send you a cadre of books. The reason why we came out with this in the first place, and the reason why we talked about ebooks in the first place, is it's cost prohibitive in the grand scheme of things, with the number of manuals and the melee of trying to figure out what you need. In addition to that, our charges have not increased since 2007 when we started offering rebat classes. All costs have gone up, and so this is our way of not having to increase our prices. We can still offer something. We can offer updates through these books, through ebooks, but we're not going to be printing anymore. If they want printed copies, we will move to an environment, not immediately, but as time progresses, we will move to an environment where we're not going to be sending printed books anymore. When we do send them, there will be a charge. It will be a cost charge. So if it costs us $15 to print a book, then that's how much we're charging to print the book. So we will be doing that as time progresses. The implication for you guys, the immediate implication, means that they would have to have an electronic device in the room with them. Does that impact your bandwidth if you have 25 people in the class that are trying to connect it? And if that does impact your bandwidth, is there any kind of solution that we can work cumulatively together to figure out what that is? Roxy.
Okay, so we've been trying with Legal 1 and Legal 2 to go completely paperless. And we do charge for the book. But the information I got from Trek, because we send it out in advance, they can download it, they can print it, they can do whatever with it. But Trek says that we have to give them, or what Jennifer told me is that we have to give them the option to have a book.
Absolutely.
If they want it. So that means we have to have these books printed out in advance. And what we do, we check them out. If they don't return them, then they get a charge. They either come pay us or they try to walk out with it, and we put a charge on their account. But it's a very few that give us a hard time about it, but they're really vocal, the ones that do. So I don't know if we can get around. So that means we would have to have the books there. So during class, we could like I said, check them out like we are. I don't know what
Sure.
the best solution is for it, but that's what we're doing right now, and we do still have issues with some people.
Unfortunately, I mean, I think there's always going to be some issues because there's a lot of people who don't like change. And I can tell you this, I would not personally like it in general because I like having, if I really want to care, if I care about this class, I really want the book in front of me. And of course I don't want to pay extra. I mean, who does? But at the end of the day, I mean, it's the direction that I think we need to move, and the idea of checking them out as opposed to selling them is a great idea.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
The other thing to say is really with the bandwidth, is just require them to download it or save it onto their desktop before they come to class.
Yeah.
And then they're opening it from their device, and they're not offline on the internet.
Yeah, and especially if you send a preemptive email to them saying, hey, thank you for registering for this class, please make sure you download it because internet connectivity is always spot depending on how many people are in the room, and we have 4 plugs. So keep that in mind, so that way they know and they're not trying to plug it in at the last minute. I think a preemptive email will help a lot, just to let them know that this is the direction we're going. I wish I had a better option for the naysayers.
Will downloading be an option, or is it a type where they have to have internet access to view it?
They will be able to download. They won't be able to share, but they'll be able to download.
Sure.
Do you have kids?
This year. So, no. So, great question. Our goal is to start beta testing this year. There's a couple of preceding expectations we have to get to that point. But once we do, the ebook repository is something that's not incredibly difficult to do once we have these other steps in place. And so once we get to those, it's going to be pretty easy to move into that environment. But we recognize that there's a transition. So we're not going to look up tomorrow and say, hey, guess what? We're done, and we're not printing any more books. We wouldn't do that to you. You know, we'll phase it in as time progresses. So while we might have an ebook option that's out there, we won't require it that's the only option until probably 2020. And that's assuming we can get it to you on a before conference. After that, we'll see. We'll probably push it a little bit more. Our goal is to give you time to expose people to it, to let them know about it, to teach them about it, and then we start moving to an environment where we phase it out. So, yeah, our goal is to make it easy.
I mean, I think that's great because a lot of people just decide just to show up.
Yeah. You know, and that's the unfortunate thing. And I've gotten very callous the longer I get here, and so I'm like, register early. It's amazing how that works. And so it's hard. You want to be accommodating with them, that's for sure. But the nice thing about that is, if you do have somebody, like let's say you have a GRI class and you're at capacity, you have all the books disseminated or whatever, they can register and they get the book right then and there. You don't have to worry about having extra sitting around. They have access, and so if they wanted a printed copy, then well, shoot, register earlier. So, I mean, I think that there is hopefully there's some options that will be more amenable as we go on. A couple of other things about CARD. Yep.
So you talk about them being able to have access to the book. Are they going to be registering through your system, or are we going to be adding them to a roster for you?
You will be adding them, and that's the next thing I was going to talk about, so it's perfect. So right this minute, CARD, you can add classes to CARD, but magically you don't see them until the day of the class. That's going away, because you have to be able to tell us who's in the class. And so we have to let you have access to it, which means not only have access to CARD, you have access to edit classes, and you have access to delete classes. Who's irritated about emailing us all the time? Hey, I have to move the class. Now you're done. We're moving to that environment. That's sooner than later. That's something we can move to get in the habit of it. The only thing we ask is please make sure you put the roster in the right class. That helps a lot. And so that's the most important thing, is just making sure you're putting it in the right class. But you will be able to upload the people in the class. And that's also going to change FastPass. I don't know if you guys saw or experienced FastPass at Winter Meeting, but it was something we scanned and put into an Excel spreadsheet. That Excel spreadsheet we would update to the CARD. That's a lot of moving pieces. We were going to roll out beta testing at FastPass this summer, and we realized there's a better way to do this. So our goal is now, hopefully our expectation is definitely by September, we will be beta testing a new version of FastPass. They still have access to it. They still have the QR code. You still scan it, but instead of it going into an Excel spreadsheet, it goes directly into CARD. And it's actually going to match the people you already put in. So you have the pre-registrants, and you have the people who sign up for class. You're going to see who's there and who isn't. Or more importantly, the people who have paid and the people who sign up. And if you have an anomaly, well, did they pay? Are you sure? And so you can go check just to make sure they've actually paid for the class, and then you can get them registered. Even with the scanning, you still have overriding options. And so for instance, and you can scan as many times as you need to, and I'll get you Kathy in 1 second. You can scan as many times as you need to, so if it's a GRI class, you can scan all 4 days. You can scan every before and after class, whatever you need to do. There will be a button that says the final scan, and then you scan it. And even with that, you can still, that will be the Trek record keeping. It's all automated, all online now, which means for CE classes, you don't need the course completion marker anymore. And we'll talk about that later, but it'll be all automated and all online. But then you can also still override it. So if you look up and you say, look, I know somebody missed something, so technically, according to FastPass, they shouldn't get credit for this class, but there were 12 people in class and they were there all day. I counted them. And so you can actually override that, and you can still give them credit for the course, even if FastPass says whatever it says. So you have the ability and autonomy and authority to say, yeah, I know you were there. Just because you missed one, it's fine. Because I know some people had to trace people down with the course completion rosters to get them to sign and things like that. We're not doing that anymore. It's all automated. You know who's there, and that's okay. Any questions about that? Kathy?
Quick, thing, short. What's FastPass?
So FastPass is something that you can find on the My Education page that has a QR code. And basically, Trek requires that for participants to come in, they have to sign out with the course completion roster. They also have to show a photo ID. It's an option for them not to have their driver's license. They actually show their FastPass and they scan in, and it tells you that they're there. And it shows their photo. So you don't have to worry about them pulling out any kind of license. It's all there. So you can just scan, it gets updated into cart, and then you don't have to worry about keeping track of anything. They don't have to pull everything out, because nothing's more irritating when they come up with a coffee and a water bottle and 2 purses and their laptop and have to put it all down and have to go find their wallet and pull out their card. You know, that's the goal, is that they now have it on their device. They can walk up, scan, and walk in. The QR code automatically uploads the license number. Obviously, we know who the people are, because Truck knows who the people are by the license number, so we can say, hey, is this who you meant for this to be? Yes, yes it is. And I also know that they've paid, because I've already put the people in class beforehand. And it'll match it up to the people who have already pre-registered. Yep.
What's the best way to get them to have that uploaded? I mean,
so that's another good question. We're working on, once we have the final version, we're going to actually have a video that we can use, and we will be sending out. We want to get the final version first and then get it out there. In addition to that, we have an administrator tool that we're giving you access to. So let's say, for instance, they don't have the FastPass downloaded. I don't want to wait for 45 minutes for them to find it. And so you can actually type in the license number into the administrator side. And by doing so, it has their QR code, and it'll tell you whether or not they have their photo ID. And you can just scan the computer. So you don't actually have to, they don't have to have it with them. You have your own.
Yeah, we've been using it through our app for about 3 years now, or 2 years now. And so what happens is, we have a video that we show. It's like a little, like, next time you register for a class, and we do it in new member orientation and all of our classes that are like newer agent trainings. So then the next time they come in, they know, and then we put it in the magazine, and we just always promote it through everything. But the first time they have to do it, then the next people that come back, it's not very good. So you'll be going through TAR, and so it'll be a better, easier, more broad umbrella, and they'll all be equipped.
The biggest thing we found at a winter meeting was the number of people who didn't know how to log into our website on their mobile device. That took forever. And so our goal is for you guys or them not to have to wait. And so if for whatever reason they show up and they don't have it, let's say they have their photo ID, that's awesome. But regardless, you can actually just type in the license number into the administrator side, and it'll pull it up, and it'll have their information so you can scan it. So no matter what, they're not signing anything. And so we don't have to worry about paperwork anymore, period. Because you either scan this or you scan this, and that's it. And then you can see their photo ID. If it's here, great. If it isn't, they have to show their photo ID. You can also take a picture with a webcam, and that way they have the picture from now on. You can take the picture, they can't. That's the role with the real estate commission. Is that we, as course administrators, can say, I know that you are who you say you are because I just now saw your photo. Click, and we're good. And so that way we can cover the photo ID component. You don't have to have a driver's license or CHO or whatever you can do. That way it can hopefully expedite the process. More importantly, no paperwork. I'm really tired of paperwork. Anything else? QR reader. And that's a good question, because there are scanners and there are QR code scanners, which we have found out the hard way. And so one is a lot cheaper, but it only scans barcodes. The other one is a little bit more expensive. We found one for about $40 that we're testing, and that's the cheapest one we found so far. But as we find other ones, we'll definitely come up with a litany of options that are out there that, hey, if you guys are interested, here you go. Yeah, if you want to do this, this is what the equipment is. Well, I mean, $35. Yep. We're still figuring that out right now. We have one sitting on our desks back at the office, and we're playing with it, trying to figure out, okay, does this work every time? what's wrong with it. And so basically giving you reviews of what we liked and didn't like about it.
I heard rumors y'all were doing a conference, yes.
We're doing it again in conference, yes. Our goal is to do it with this new in-app feature, so we actually can find the people who have already registered versus not. And if that works at a conference with hundreds of people coming, then surely it can also work in the local association. So that's our goal, is to make sure that if it works, then here, it's yours. And we will also by that time have the introduction, because we want them to know about it and have the fast pass at the time. So our goal is to have it all ready by that time. So hopefully by September conference, we have everything to say, here you go. And you can take it and run back with it at your office. Any other questions? Moji?
Do you think you'll ever have an opportunity in CART with all these new updates where if I enter all my information in CART, it will populate a generic flyer? Trying to minimize my work here. Since I'm already having